Mentorship unlocks two things, confidence and expansion of my work. When I was starting off, I wasn't the greatest scientist, but I had a really good mentor who really cared about his students. And he taught me how to present my work, how to talk about my research. And no matter how big or small a presentation was, we're going to take time to go over every single slide to make sure when I talk about my research is impactful. And I use those teachings to the students that I mentored later on. But in terms of network, I have mentors who would open doors for me that would have been much more difficult to open doors by myself, because if they don't know me, am I going to make introductions with those who have a broader network? So mentorship, in short, helps boost your confidence and unlocks untapped networks.
Do you do when the path that everyone respects is no longer the one that you want? In this episode, our speaker shares how he walked away from the traditional academic track to build a nonprofit helping underserved students break into science. We talk about the risks, runway, and the moment he realized that mission mattered more than prestige. Let's welcome our featured leader, Robert Fernandez.
Thank you so much, JG, for the introduction. Happy to be here at the Powerhouse.
Well, glad to have you. I really wanted to know more about your story. So let's get it started. Where were you in life before making this big decision?
Yes, before making the big decision, I was working as a postdoctoral scientist at Columbia University. I think I was around my fourth year working there as a scientist. And I would say the decision was 6 months before. The decision was pretty much, I want to continue in the academic scientist route, where just a little bit of background. In order to be an academic professor, you need to do a PhD, and then you work as a postdoctoral scientist, and then you apply for a faculty position. So that's one route in the standard scientific career. And for me, the option was, do I want to pursue that route, or do I want to pursue a route that's not traditionally taken in my field? Do I want to start a nonprofit focused on STEM education and helping students from underserved communities enter the scientific workforce?
Let's break down these two real decisions in front of you. All right. So, what did each choice mean that you'd be giving up?
If I went through the academic professorship route, that means that I wouldn't have time to dedicate to my nonprofit work. And that means I would not be able to serve my community, pretty much students from underserved communities who are trying to get into grad school. And that means I will work full time in a research lab. I will be able to mentor students. But because of how demanding the environment is as an academic professor, I wouldn't be able to do both at the same time. And if I went through the nonprofit route, the reverse is true. Pretty much that I will be pursuing a career in higher education in the nonprofit sector, but I wouldn't be in a scientific research laboratory mentoring students one on one.
What made this choice kind of hard?
I would say the financial sustainability was the key issue here. So if I go towards the professorship route, normally if you're selected as an assistant professor, you are given a startup package, and then you apply for federal grants that can cover your salary and some scientists' salary as well. And depending on the university, that's 1 to 2 years of funding from the startup package, and then you apply for federal grants. If I go through the nonprofit route, there's no guarantee there in terms of someone's going to give you a startup package. It's more of like you raise or you apply for a whole bunch of foundational support, individual donors, earn revenue streams in order to support your own salary and the programming and the staff.
And when you mentioned that finance is a big factor here, can you break that down, like, take us through like the specifics of it?
If I went to the academic professorship role, depending on a university, salary ranges anywhere from maybe 80 to 120K. And you're given a couple million, depending on the university, as a startup package for your research lab. And with that, you use those funds to hire your team to work on scientific research. And ideally, depending on the university, you have 6 years to get tenure. And if you don't get tenure within those 6 years, you have to start again somewhere else. And that's probably one route that I could have taken. And I think for me, I just decided not to take that route, just because while being a scientist is fulfilling to some people, that's not where I was passionate about doing science. I think I was more passionate about the pathways to science. So that's going into the nonprofit route, where Where in a nonprofit route, you have to have funding for your programming, funding for your salary, funding for staff, and everything that comes with running a nonprofit, accounting, legal, etc. And that's something that you would have to apply for foundation grants. That takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to hear back from, in addition to maybe coming up with some earned revenue strategies or getting funds from individual donors. But the thing is that with nonprofit, funding is not guaranteed at all. Funding as an academic professor, you have your startup package, so that's guaranteed if you're selected.
I see. You mentioned the time was a factor. Could you break it down?
Yeah. So I would say, in terms of how much time it takes being a scientist versus running a nonprofit, being a scientist, it varies at different stages of your career. So if you're a PhD student, you're expected to work anywhere from 40 to 80 hours a week. And then after that, you do a postdoctoral scientist position. You're still a full-time time scientist. And this varies depending on your project, but the main purpose is you have to get data to get publications. And the time commitment there is similarly 40 to 80 hours. It's what you make of it. So if I became a professor, I would similarly have to spend around 60 to 80 hours a week writing grants, mentoring students, coming up with research proposals, faculty meetings, teaching classes, etc. And I know how much time I spend as a scientist, working as a postdoctoral scientist at Columbia, and I barely had time to pursue any other activities. So the work-life balance for me wouldn't have been great if I wanted to do a scientist and run a nonprofit full time. It just wouldn't be manageable. But if I went to the nonprofit route, I would say it definitely is a bit of a time commitment, but specifically, it's kind of what you invest and what you put in. So, for example, in my case, we're running two national programs. I'm applying for grants, networking, etc., and day-to-day operations. And that varies a lot per week. It could be anywhere from 40 hours or 80 hours. It really depends on what is due. Like if an up grant is due, if you have to prepare for a particular pitch, or if you have to run a whole bunch of workshops for your programming. But I would say for me, there will for us more of a work-life balance running a nonprofit compared to being an academic professor.
Take us through that moment when this all became real. Take us through that moment when you made that decision.
Yeah. So I think that decision was probably around uh, January to March 2024. And I think around that time period, I remember discussing what I was wrestling with some nonprofit leaders. And one of them was kind enough to introduce me to one of their original funders. So around March 2026, I applied for funding for a seed grant to help offset the cost of salaries for me as an executive director. At the same time, we heard back from a foundation in New York, the Simons Foundation, that can support programming funds for our work. And at that time, I knew that those funding mechanisms, it was enough for, uh, and that gave me at least, like, if I wanted to do this full time, then that was some runway that I had.
So, what did it cost you, kind of pursuing your passion and making this nonprofit work? Like, what showed up in the first 30 to 90 days after making decision?
Yeah, in terms of what I learned fast is that there's no one managing you. You manage yourself. So it's like if I wanted to get those funding, if I wanted to get additional funding to support my salary or expand programming or hire staff, no one was going to tell me what to apply for. I had to do a lot of the legwork or connect with different nonprofit leaders or learn from different nonprofit leaders or attend different webinars of what funding mechanisms are out there available. So it was a lot of self learning, a lot of asking for help. And I think those first 90 days, I personally thought I could just, pretty much sit in my room and just apply for a whole bunch of grants. And 6 to 8 months later, we'll get those grants. And in short, I learned no, that's not a strategy you use. I learned that it's good to connect with different nonprofit leaders who are awardees from those foundations, to make introductions, and that allowed me to increase my chances of getting some grants. So I pretty much learned leading a nonprofit is not something you do by yourself. It's something you have to tap into your community.
Great. So, knowing this decision that you made, what rule did you use to decide?
Yes, in terms of the rule, I would say it's being a founder is not a solo journey, even though it feels like that at times. It's a journey where you have to tap into your network, rely on your colleagues, and not being afraid to ask for help.
Never be afraid to ask for help. That's beautiful. And for people not familiar with this organization that you founded, tell us a little bit more background and who do you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in short, Científico Latino, it's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit based in New York. And in short, our mission is to help students from low income, first gen, and underserved communities break into higher education in the sciences. Specifically, we help them bridge that college to PhD pipeline, helping them get accepted to master's and PhD programs in the sciences. I like to think that we're training the future scientific leaders so they can enter the scientific workforce.
So, Robert, what was the moment you realized that you cared more about the pathways to science than the lab?
Yeah, that's a great question, JG. I would say that was during my PhD. I remember as I was wrapping up my doctoral studies at biochemistry at Yale University, I had one final thesis committee meeting with different academic professors, and they pretty much talked about what are your plans afterwards. And I told them that I want to run a nonprofit full route, and all of them were sorry. I told the professors I want to run a nonprofit full time, and all of them were like, "Can help you with that." They're like, "You should think about doing a postdoc." And I kind of ended up doing a postdoc and working as a scientist for 4 more years because I wanted to tap into my network in New York that can maybe help me get some funding when I'm ready to go full time. Just because if I did my nonprofit after my PhD, no one was going to give me $1 million to time. And even now, I still haven't gotten that $1 million, but I've made enough groundwork in New York City where people are aware of the work that we do. And it has allowed me to connect stronger with the New York City community.
So, what's your rule for knowing that you have enough runway to leave academia and build full time?
Yes, I would say just from my lived experience, I would say try to have 2 years of funding in order to build full time. Just because right now, foundation grants take anywhere from 6 to 8 months just to hear back, and it's not guaranteed that you're going to get a grant accepted because it's a very competitive climate. You have to know someone at that particular foundation, talk to different awardees just to get a good chance. You can't just apply blindly. But if you are really adamant in going full time, I would suggest try to think about doing it part time at least, where you have part of your salary from a academic position or other type of position, and the other part of the salary is that you have to raise. It's easier to raise 50% and 100% of your salary every year.
That's a good insight. All right. My next question is you've helped hundreds of students get into graduate school through mentorship. In your experience, what is the one capability that mentorship unlocks in young scientists that they usually can't develop alone?
Well, that's a great question. I think mentorship unlocks, I would say two things. I would say confidence and I would say expansion of my work. So for me, I know when I was starting off, I wasn't the greatest scientist, but I had a really good mentor who really cared about his students. And he taught me how to present my work, how to talk about my research. And no matter how big or small a presentation was, we're going to take time to go over every single slide to make sure when I talk about my research is impactful. And I use those teachings to the students that I mentored later on. But in terms of network, I have mentors who would open doors for me that would have been much more difficult to open doors by myself because if they don't know me, how am I going to make introductions with those who have a broader network? So mentorship in short unlocks helps boost your confidence and unlocks untapped networks.
Great answer. So, through your organization, Científico Latino, you've seen hundreds of graduate school applications. What is a signal of scientific potential that traditional admissions committees often overlook?
Yeah, that's a great question. Untapped scientific potential. I would say that a lot of that would be listening to a student's story, specifically how they were able to overcome different barriers to get to where they are. Some students may have very limited research experience, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to be great scientists. It just means that the environment they were in, they had limitations. And when you put them in an environment where they can thrive and they can be trained to be a scientist, they are going to become great scientists. So I think it's all about seeing a student's untapped potential based on their experience overcoming different barriers and how passionate they are for reaching in upwards in higher education.
So you've been working with your organization for a while now. So Robert, when did you realize that this pipeline that you were building was actually working?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So I would say we started our mentorship program in 2019, and this year is the first year where we actually had students who are receiving their PhD. And I've been attending so many virtual thesis defense of students that we mentored in 2019, which has made me really happy that we were able to do such a long-term impact because we only helped them from the college to PhD pipeline, but some of them took their own initiatives in helping us increase the scientific outreach work that we're doing by either serving as mentors, writing grad school preparation resources. Some of our former students even started or joined similar grad school application mentorship programs at their own university. Some even started their own nonprofits. So it's just seeing how inspirational the students that were part of our program and what they did during a PhD, receiving a PhD, and now where they're going now, whether they're applying for or getting accepted as assistant dean positions or working as postdoctoral scientists or even going into industry. Very happy seeing the success of our students.
So Robert, are you able to share any stories?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our students who was in our pilot program, he recently received his PhD in biological chemistry. And during his time as a PhD student, he actually helped a lot in the growth of our organization, where he contributed to a scientific publication on our application mentorship program. In addition to that, after receiving his PhD, he went on to work as a particular fellow working on supporting the future of biomedical research at the Office of Research, where he's seeing how their work impacts everyone from trainees to patients by empowering the collective and collaborative creativity of researchers. So it's seeing how impactful our program has been to the point where they're like now thriving on their own and starting off their own journeys, which I'm very happy to see. And I think that's just one student. The other ones that I know of, they just wrapped up their PhDs and they're in the job market. One of them, I think, got a job as an event admissions manager at a university. So I'm very happy seeing where our students are going.
So we're now going to move to the fun part of our podcast, your questions. So Robert, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So tell us, what is your coffee order in New York?
Oh, yeah. For me, just straight black coffee, 3 sugars, ice. That's it.
Awesome. How about your bagel order? Say it like how you're going to order it.
Yeah. Normally, just say sausage, egg, and cheese with hot sauce on a roll.
What's a local spot that deserves more attention?
Yeah, I would say some of the local spots that deserves more attention would be Peruvian restaurants in Brooklyn and Queens. One of them being In Cafe, which is in Long Island.
Long Island City? Incan, right? The Incan?
No, Long Island. It's east to Bayside. Yeah.
Ah, East of Basic. Awesome. Let's see. So you're celebrating. All right. So where are you booking?
Where am I booking for
Yeah.
celebrations? I would say celebrating with good friends at a Peruvian restaurant, and then maybe afterwards going to a nice Latin club at Jackson Heights.
Jackson Heights. Nice. What subway behavior should be illegal?
Yeah, that one I would say, and my dad is guilty of this, pretty much playing music without headphones.
Oh, okay, okay. Which New York City neighborhood is basically your personality and why?
I would say I haven't been there enough, but the few times that I have been there, I really enjoy Jackson Heights just because of the strong Latino and Latinx community. And every time I'm there, I just feel very at home. So I would say Jackson Heights because of the cultural richness.
Great food in Jackson Heights too. So here, so if New York had a signature smell, what is it? Describe it vividly.
Ooh, I think if New York had a signature smell, ooh, I feel like this is a trick question. Yeah, if New York had a signature smell, would it be? I think it would be one where it's random. Every time you open it, you get a different smell depending on where you are.
Finish this sentence. In New York, you can blank.
Yeah, in New York, you can be anything you want to be.
What's the most New York thing that you've done?
Yes, this is a good one. I guess the most New York thing that I've done was walk all the way from 14th Street all up to 116th Street. So I think roughly 100 blocks just because I wanted to get to know the neighborhood better.
So, like from Union Square going up?
Yeah.
There we go. I love it. Okay, so tell us, what did New York City teach you?
Yeah, that one, that one's a two-parter. I would say
Sure.
New York City taught me how to dream. It taught me first how to be a scientist, and now it's teaching me how to be a nonprofit leader.
Awesome. So we are in the final part of our program. Robert, tell us, who are the people that should reach out to you? And what is your final message to emerging leaders in New York?
Yes. So the people who should reach out to me, I would say if you are a college student interested in pursuing a career in the sciences, definitely feel free to check us out at scientificolatino.com. We have a year-long program where we help students with the grad school application resources by providing you a mentor, educational curriculum, and financial support. If you are a nonprofit leader, I'm always interested in building collaborations and connecting with either nonprofits or universities to teach their students about pathways in the sciences. And if you're a funder who wants to know more about our work, always feel free to reach out. And profit New York and for the New York nonprofit leaders, I would say tap into your network. Don't do this journey alone. Everyone has gotten to where they are with help, so there's no shame in asking for it.
All right. Thank you for being here in the show. And to our audience, we will see you on the next. If you're serious about making better decisions in your life, career, or business, subscribe to the Powerhouse. Every episode, we unpack one real decision under pressure so you can learn from leaders across New York City. And if there's someone whose story we should feature next, drop their names in the comments. And I'm JG. I'll see you in the next episode.